Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the special board meeting of the Monrovia Unified School District. We were just coming out of closed session and we are picking up, so we will convene our special Board of Education closed session and adjourn our special Board of Education, reconvene our Board of Education open session at 7:06. Board Clerk Maritza Travanti will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The roll call is visual and everybody is here. We had a closed session prior to this and we took no reportable action. Once again, the Board of Education is trying to give the community as much information about how the school district is operating during these unprecedented times, so that if there is any concerns, any questions, any comments that parents may have, they can come to us in a timely manner. I will also suggest to the public that if there is a concern that is not on a night that we have a meeting or just adjacent to that, please do not hesitate to reach out to us and we will get you the information to the best of our ability in the fastest possible manner. The worst thing that can happen to folks is to feel like, A, your voice is not being heard, or if you're having a concern that a person is not listening to it and you don't know how to do it. So we're here to help. Please reach out to us if you need us. And we will continue these meetings as long as we need to until everybody is comfortable what it is what we're doing. Ms. Huff, is there any comments for the special board meeting?
Yes, Board President Hammond, we have a few tonight. The first comment comes from Melissa Taylor. Ms. Taylor writes, "Good evening, school board members. Thank you all so much for working to extend and procure the grant that continues to offer the free breakfast, lunch, and dinner to all children. I cannot tell you the relief my family felt this morning by participating. I knew that feeding my kids during this new way of life was a huge stressor, and I was constantly feeling like I was on the clock to have snacks and food that they liked. I was thinking about food all the time. It never dawned on me, though, how much it was bogging me down and how much energy I was spending on worrying about it. I know that MUSD is doing everything they can to create some sort of normalcy while we are living in an anything but normal world. We went this morning to pick up our food, and besides removing the stress of above, it added a huge bonus of normalcy. For example, we got dressed and in the car and went to school, as we did every day for months in the before times. Then we got our stuff and came home, ate, and went to class. There is enough food for everyone, and most importantly, it destigmatized the idea of who gets free and reduced lunch, because if everyone is participating, no one is made to feel different. Thank you for making this available, and I hope all families who need this are able to take part in this amazing opportunity that you have provided. I wonder if for kids that aren't able to physically come to school, if the bus drivers may be able to help deliver meals throughout the city. Thank you again, Melissa Taylor."
Thank you, Ms. Taylor.
Board President Hammond, the next comment comes from Ruhia Yule. Ms. Yule writes, "Good evening. My name is Ruhia Yule. About a month or so ago, I wrote to the board suggesting the development of a committee or body to evaluate district practices and policies for barriers to racial equity. I was glad to hear the board consider my suggestion and make plans to identify community members to serve on this committee. I would also like to thank Superintendent Thorosian and Board Member Gilliland for their personal, quick, courteous, and curious responses to my concerns. Today, I would like to direct the board to the Equity and Excellence Division of the Fort Worth Independent School District. This district began to study district practice and policies and offer suggestions for improvement in 2016. They have since developed a racial equity committee, site-based equity teams, professional development opportunities for all staff, and community outreach boards. Collaboration with and learning from a district that is currently on their way in this work will, I know, help our own district continue to make plans and support both our community and staff. Finally, I would like to reiterate that populating the committee with a balance of community members committed to racial justice and equity, as well as professionals in the areas of equity and inclusion and education, will help the committee shape its lens in a purposeful way. I am in the midst of my own teaching work and serve both the Board of Education and the district I teach, and the administrative staff who are struggling to meet the challenges of not only the COVID environment, but also this historical moment which calls us all to advance through the disease of injustice in all its manifestations. I say this to affirm your work and offer my energy to this, the community which nourished my own sense of wonder and paved my path towards higher education. Please do not hesitate to reach out. Rahia Yule.
Thank you, Ms. Yule.
And those are all the comments for tonight.
Thank you. Up first is, well, we have informational reports only this evening, and they will be headed off by Dr. Terosian. Dr. Terosian.
Thank you, President Hammond, members of the board. Just a few updates, some of which we touched upon the last time, and I would like to bring back again. The guiding principles with which we always begin these meetings, but let's move on to the next slide, Ms. Huff. Enrollment. Our enrollment is down by about 92 from our projection. We are no longer taking daily district-wide tallies, but each time I provide you with an update, it will be with the very latest that we have compiled. Next slide, please. Some good news. Since our last meeting when we were working on our Meals on Wheels programs and trying to figure out how to support our community, that advocacy, thank you, board, because we were definitely part of an effort that was heard. And so those summer waivers, feeding waivers, have been extended through the end of 2020, December 31st, 2020, which allows us to feed everybody who is a student. It is incredible. We're very excited. And the best news, we thought, how about if we get these waivers extended and still nobody comes? And Ms. Wu told me today, here's the number, we served more meals today than at any point since the dismissal. So I'm thankful that the waivers allowed us to meet a need within our community. And I'm thankful for our PTAs who helped get the word out that the meals are available. And we will continue to promote it because this is a need, and we do want for everybody to take advantage of this. So it's nice to have a win and one that makes such an impact. Next slide, please. We had one win and we had one loss. AB 1384 by Assemblymember O'Donnell is, the technical term for this bill is it's dead. This is a bill that would have provided school districts some coverage and from liability, and that is no longer the case. So this is another one for which we had advocated. Unfortunately, it was unsuccessful in the last round. Next slide, please. The expanded learning pods. Again, we've been exploring and learning more, and with the guidance that we received, most recently we have some additional information that we are allowed. It should be no more than 25% of our enrollment per school. But what we really need is to determine what the need is with our students. And so the next step for us should be to survey to see if we were to open such a program, who would be interested, and perhaps develop a priority list of students who may have the greatest need. And some sample priorities are listed there for you. We can have a survey out as early as tomorrow if the board were amenable to that. We also need to determine our staffing, our hours of operation, and of course, some of these things we would determine based upon the input we would receive from a survey from parents. And then, of course, we also have the technical pieces of determining what the substitute process would be, because these cohorts would not be intermingling with others. So it's really important for us to be as safe as possible. Next slide, please, Ms. Huff. Youth sports is another one where we have additional guidance and have been told that we can indeed open, not for any contact sports, of course, but only in the outdoors in limited groups. And so this is something that we will continue to pursue and explore with our high school, beginning at the high school level through athletics. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So at our last meeting, we had a health advisory from the state saying authorizing small in-person groups, and then we received a very quick advisory from locally from LA County Department of Public Health saying, nope, don't even start that. We have we need to put in our own guidance. Next slide, please. And then we got this yesterday saying, here's the guidance, go ahead. And this is for students with special services and some special needs. And so these are cohorts for instruction. That's very different from the last set of cohort. The last grouping with those learning pods are just supervised places and structured places for students to focus and do their work. Here, this is really for additional services and supports for students with special needs, whether it's an individualized education plan or it's for our English learners. These cohorts, like the others, should be no more than 12 students. Here, no more than 2 supervising adults, and really is to target the specialized needs and targeted supports for our students. Next slide, please. This should be no more than 10% of the enrollment of any school. You know, it would be up to the school to determine who would participate and in what manner. This 10% is separate from the 25% of those learning pods. So those are 2 different populations. And the idea is to make sure that there's no more than 14 individuals in any one cohort, whether it's 12 students and 2 supervising adults, or 11 students, 1 one-on-one aide, and 2 supervising adults. Again, it must never total more than 14. And of course, the COVID exposure management plan must be fully implemented, and cohorts continue to remain isolated from others. So the adults cannot transfer from cohort to cohort. That separation helps create a bubble so that if there is indeed any positivity rate in any one group, the quarantine wouldn't extend to all groups. Next slide, please. Now, after our last meeting, I thought this was going to be the focus of today's presentation, moving from the county monitoring system to the tiered system. And of course, so much else has happened since last Friday. But the blueprint for a safer economy is the new tiered system by which counties are ranked in terms of their positivity rate and in terms of their infections and spaces. So purple being the most restrictive, and that is where the California has been for a little bit. Because our numbers are continuing to improve, we may be moving into the red. Next slide, please. So at a minimum, counties must remain in the tier for at least 3 weeks before moving to the next tier. And if they are in the next tier and there is some sort of increase, then they go back to the last tier. The data is reviewed weekly, and the county metrics will be updated on the California COVID-19 dashboard weekly on Tuesdays.
Can I ask a question at this point, or would you prefer it at the end?
Ask away. I'll do my very best to answer.
At what colored tier is the guidance permitting schools to return, at least to a hybrid model? Ms. Huff, would you go back?
The red tier so we would need to be at least in the red.
So I think it's 5% positivity, right?
And
so that's red.
That's red, but that's only through a waiver. And that's only at the elementary level.
Okay, so it would be less than red.
Yes.
For schools to return
without having to go through a waiver process. But let me also clarify that whenever schools are allowed to reopen, that COVID management plan has to be fully implemented. All of the pieces that we have been working on tirelessly for months will be implemented regardless of the level and the size of the students coming in. Next slide, please. And I think we could go one more. So some of the school reopening requirements are here just for in-person instruction. Should have just gone to the next slide and asked, read this.
Sorry if I just waited, I'm sorry.
Okay. But again, for us to move forward, we do need to have to plan for the possibility of closing again, because there are no fail-safes regardless of the number of steps we take to ensure that students remain away from one another and take all of the precautions. Next slide, please. So in terms of our next steps, we will continue exploring the learning pods. I would like to send out a survey because we would be stalled otherwise. There's not much more for us to explore without that in order to determine the viability with our own staffing, and to determine, what the need really is. We'd like to identify the viable youth sports activities that would be allowed and work with our school leadership teams to develop a plan in order to open those up again in a safe manner. We are going to send out a survey, the first of many recurring surveys to students, parents, and teachers to try and figure out what's working and what's not, just in terms of the pacing with our classes. The theory has become reality, and sometimes things are lost in translation. Is there anything that we need to address or redress based upon the feedback we receive from the various groups? And so this would help inform our decisions and our decision making as we move forward. And we will be presenting next Wednesday our learning continuity and attendance plan for an additional review and a public hearing. We'll continue to streamline our communications, update the appropriate board policies, and of course, continue to work on a hybrid learning model, because when we are at that point where we are able to open, certainly we'd like to do so safely and with a plan in place. It's always nice to try and have a plan in place so we know what we're doing when we finally get to that green light. Are there any other?
Dr. Throsian?
Yes.
I don't see the any steps for the special education and English language learner program. Is that not something that we should start to develop a plan for?
Right again, Mr. Gilliland. I apologize. I did not include them in the next steps, and that is absolutely what we will be doing.
It's hard to keep up with all the changes that come, but that's one we probably need to make sure is in there.
It will be in there next Wednesday, I assure you. But thank you for noticing that. Otherwise, it would have been really a gap.
Maritza, did you have a question? You're on mute.
Thank you, President Hammond. Dr. Throsian, if you could report out also on what we're referring to in California, the digital divide. I know we've made some tremendous progress in that area and ensuring our students have devices and or hotspots or whatever is needed. Can you assure us that any student that needed a device has been given a device?
Yes.
Please report out on that, please.
I can tell you right now that I'm not aware of a single student who has gone without a device or access. We have tried to fill that need immediately and have been able to do so. Just working with every school and trying to harness all of our resources. But I will provide an update as to how many devices were distributed, as well as how many hotspots.
Great, thank you. And if there aren't any parents listening out there and you know someone that has that need, please refer them over to their site principal, because we need to make sure that that is addressed. We don't want to leave anybody behind.
Kathy, I know it's very important that we are making sure that everybody has hotspots, devices, and the such. I think I'd like to take it one step further. And as soon as we get back from the holiday next week, send out an email to everybody to make sure that their devices that they got or received from us in hotspots are working, and if they have any issues. Let's be proactive on asking instead of waiting to be reactive if someone needs to reach out to us. I want to take the extra step wherever we can to make sure that we're supporting our parents and students.
Interestingly enough, President Hammond, that is one of the first questions in our survey, in that
Good.
feedback loop, because we will constantly ask that question.
Right, because I don't want too much lag time between, oh my goodness, my Chromebook fizzled out, to, oh, I didn't know who to call. Mr. Gilliland, you had a question?
It's more of a request, and that, Dr. Throsian, is I was on Parent Square this morning, and I noticed that it indicated that there were some parents or students or staff, or that there were some people on our Parent Square list that didn't have an appropriate contact. And I wonder, when you do your report, if you could include our Parent Square participation, and do all of our parents access that and have proper access to that?
That is certainly something I can report back with, because we are making contact, and it would be good for us to update whatever information we have, so that it is, we have 100%. Yeah.
Thank you.
And Brian, you had a question?
Yes, Dr. Throsian, you had mentioned that you wanted to send out surveys to parents and to staff to further explore their learning pods, hours of operation, if they have the ability or willingness, for fees. And I was thinking that, were you waiting for board direction? Does the board need to direct you to do so? And if you have a survey ready to go, if you could forward it to us beforehand so we could take a quick peek before it goes out, that'd be great.
I will gladly send you the survey. I was not going to wait for direction, but simply ask for forgiveness not being stopped by you and having you duly warned that I intended to.
How about if we just give you permission now, and then we can skip that step?
Perfect.
Celine?
Oh, thank you. You had just touched on, as we move forward and look at the learning pod cohorts and the specialized services and support cohorts, pods. You had touched on what staffing would look like, but you just touched on that. Will you be able to tell us what staffing is going to look like, how that process is going to be evaluated after we get the survey results? Does that make sense to maybe do that after we find out what the need is?
It does, but I can from now clarify that the learning pods would be supervised by adults who are accustomed to supervising students and who have, but who are
From
not
our district?
Within our district, yes.
Okay. Our staff.
Yes, but who are not certificated personnel. And those specialized services require, if we are to open them, would require certificated, those who have specialized degrees in order to help support the targeted learning. So they're very different in terms of intent. The first may be an extended period of time. Again, that would be up to the board once we come back with information and provide you with some additional information. And the specialized cohorts are really instruction in very small groups, and so would require far more specialized service.
Mrs. Travanti?
Yes, thank you, President Hammond. This question is probably best going to Ms. Wu if you're available. I need clarification. Last week you reported out to us on food services department and the shortfall that we're experiencing of about $900,000. Now that we have this new information with the waiver, does that change that situation or does it remain the same?
Yeah, that will definitely change the situation. It's and this will mean that with today, as Dr. Torresi has reported, we have the highest single day number of meal service. That will definitely change. And I want to report to the board also, we already closed the book, and then I will report to board next week when we do the unaudited actual. Our food service and financial wise also doing good because as I mentioned to the board, while our meal service is decreased, the team have been very conscientious related to cost. This including prevent the food waste as well as minimize the number of hours and definitely no extra hours, no subs. So the team, I'm very proud. They really are an awesome hero during this COVID-19. It's a wonderful, hard work, dedicated as the cafeteria managers.
Thank you so much. I was hoping it was going to be that kind of news. So excellent. That's great news. I also want to mention, going back to technology, I was talking to Dr. Torresian that we've had an incredible flexibility in even using our bus drivers to answer some technology calls. So I don't know if you want to speak more to that, Dr. Torresian.
We have had some staff members tap them on the shoulder and ask them for some additional help in areas where they would ordinarily not be, including our bus drivers who were responding to calls, helping students change passwords. It's nice to have all hands on deck trying to fill the need, and sometimes it's hard to even come up with what is that need. And it's great to have folks come together and really provide valuable service to our community. So, yes, big thank you to our bus drivers for doing that, as well as our village team has helped with putting together a model classroom for our learning pods to see what it might look like and arrange it and structure it. They just are remarkable.
Great,
So
thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to follow up with Maritz's question to Ms. Wu. So if our food service, if the negative number that we were experiencing and worried about last week, if that has changed, has that changed because of the waiver? Because the waiver has given us money?
Actually, the waiver did not give us much money in the direct sense, but in the indirect perspective, yes, because why? By waiver, we were able to bump up the number of meal service every single day since Monday. The waiver was announced. So, which means that the food service department revenue is based on the number of the meal we served to students. So
even though right now with the waiver, people are people buying their lunches?
No.
Even without people buying their lunches, just the number of meals served increases our budget.
Increase our revenue income.
Increases our revenue, yes.
That's right. So, for example, from the first day school is August 19 towards the August 31st. During this short period of time, our number of total year-to-date meal compared with normal time, it is less. But however, we'll catch up. So for example, by the end of September, from the first day of school and end of September, our total of the meal exceeding our projection, then which means that our revenue potentially will exceeding our projection also.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
As long as we're talking about the lunch program waiver, I just wanted to make a comment, if I could. I think maybe back in July, we all heard from Dr. Thorosian about the waiver disappearing. And I know Dr. Thorosian and Ms. Wu were upset about this. And I remember Dr. Thorosian saying, we need this back. And it was poignant and moving. And I know that Dr. Thorosian and Ms. Wu and the food service, the people in the food service department have been advocating very hard for this. And I just wanted, as well as the board, I want to thank my fellow board members and cabinet and food service department for making this happen. Yeah. So this was a big thing. So,
Kathy, Mr. Hammond, if you may allow me to share this information. I was to talk to the LEGO, the program director this afternoon, and I share with her that since the waiver extended, our number of meal is increased dramatically, and her instant response is wow. So which means that Monrovia Unified School did something which other district did not, because the LEGO has 80 school district. She has an instant say, wow, that means that, our school service lady did a great job. So I just want to share with the board the response from the LEGO.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Dr. Thorosian, is your report complete?
That concludes my report.
Okay. Next Wednesday, we will have our regularly scheduled school board meeting at its regular time at 7 o'clock. I'd like to thank everybody who has been participating in your school's back to school night virtually and taking part. I know it's all different. And, I hope one day when we look back in all this in the rearview mirror, we go, it wasn't as bad as we thought it was going to be, but we're sure happy it's over. I know we'll all have the sure happy it's over feeling. Anyway, we'll be back next Wednesday at 7 p.m. And again, like I said, if you experience any kind of anxiety or frustration with the process that you're having, please reach out to us on the board, and we will help you get the help that you need. We're here to serve you. And if there's no further business before this body, we will stand adjourned at 7:43. Good night, everybody.